The wind dragged itself through the dead milkweed pods along the side garden of the row house, and the pods made a small, dry rattle that Helena Kovalik had not heard in 11 years. The key turned heavy in her palm, brass worn to the color of a penny, and the smell of cedar shavings and pipe tobacco came out to meet her before the door had finished opening. The same smell her mother's coat had carried for 41 winters. The same smell she had braced herself for all the way up Interstate 80 from Bethlehem. Inside the front room, the linoleum still held the 4 soft indentations from the legs of her father's recliner, gone since 1998. The Singer cabinet stood against the south wall the way it had always stood. The Pierogi press sat in the middle of the maple work table in the kitchen where her mother had left it, handle crooked, the way the handle had sat crooked since the spring of 1985. Helena pressed her thumb against the small gold cross at the hollow of her throat. She did not know yet that the handle would be the reason she came back. She knew only that her mother had died on a Tuesday in January, 84 years and 3 months old, and that the lawyer in Hazleton had asked her 3 weeks later to come and walk the property before the cousin arrived. She had not asked the lawyer which cousin. She had thought there was only one Kovalik cousin left. There were 2. On the table beside the Pierogi press, the small clay pipe rested in its chipped blue saucer the way it had rested every afternoon of her mother's life. The bowl was still half full of half-burned shag. Helena did not touch it. She set the brass key down on the corner of the maple board, took off her charcoal wool coat, hung it on the peg by the back door, and looked, for the first time since the funeral, at the place where her mother had spent her last hours. The kitchen window faced east toward the slag heap behind the patch. Eckley sat on a low rise in Luzerne County. 8 blocks of identical clapboard miners' houses lined down a single tarred lane, all painted by company tradition in faded variations of the same green: pickle, fern, sage, mint, the color of a coal company's idea of cheer. Number 14, her mother's house, had been pickle green for 41 years, and would, she supposed, be pickle green until somebody sold it. Out past the slag heap, the November fields ran 6 miles west toward Hazleton and the closed-up shaft head at West Hazleton number 3. Anna Kovalik had been born in West Hazleton number 3 in 1941, in the company hospital, on the day the company doctor had run out of ether. The Pierogi press had been her wedding gift in 1958. The crooked handle was Helena's father's fault. He had dropped the press lifting it down from the high shelf in the spring of 1985, and had refused with stubborn Slovak pride to let his wife have it repaired. He had instead, that same spring, drilled the handle through and pinned it back with a long iron pin he had himself bent on the forge at the colliery shop. The pin had loosened sometime in the late 1990s. Anna had never had it fixed. Helena ran her finger along the maple of the work table. Flour still lay in the seam between the boards, packed thin as chalk dust. She had not touched flour in 11 years. The smell of cedar deepened, the way it always did in this kitchen, as the afternoon cooled, and a small cold draft moved across the back of her knees. She walked to the parlor. The newspaper was where her mother had left it. It lay folded once across the arm of the green Naugahyde recliner, open to the obituaries page of the Standard Speaker for January 13th. Helena did not need to read it. She knew the obituary that page would have shown her. She lifted the paper anyway, the way her mother had taught her to lift the family Bible by the 2 top corners with her thumbs inward, and turned it back. Under the newspaper, on the seat of the recliner, was an envelope. Cream-colored, long. Her mother's careful handwriting in the center, for Helenka, for when the cousin comes. She pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. Outside, the wind dragged itself through the milkweed again, and a brown leaf detached itself from the maple at the property line and fell end over end past the parlor window. "Mama," she whispered toward the empty parlor, "what did you not tell me?" The envelope was not sealed. She lifted the flap. Inside was a single sheet of her mother's lined kitchen notepaper, 3 lines in the same careful hand, the kind of hand that had been taught in a one-room schoolhouse in 1948. Helenka, take down the pierogi press. The handle is what matters. Gdzie su pierogi, tam je prawda. Mama, where the pierogi are, there is the truth. Helena folded the note in half, then in half again, and slipped it into the inside pocket of her cardigan. She walked back to the kitchen. The pierogi press sat where her mother had left it. The crooked handle sat where her father had pinned it in 1985. She did not yet reach for the handle. She did not yet lift it. She set the kettle on the stove instead, because her mother would have wanted her to make tea first, and because she was, in her own quiet way, afraid. The kettle hissed. The cedar smell deepened. Somewhere down the lane, a screen door slammed twice. Helena turned the kettle off. She turned back to the press, and the front door behind her opened without knocking, and she heard the polished click of 2 leather wingtips coming uninvited across the linoleum, and a voice she had not heard in 26 years said, "Helena, I came as soon as I heard you were here." She did not turn around. She set the kettle back on the cold burner. She pressed her thumb against the small gold cross at her throat. Then she turned, slowly, because she was 49 years old, and she had buried 2 parents, and she did not intend to greet Roman Bednar in her mother's kitchen as though she were 13. He was standing in the kitchen doorway in a charcoal pinstripe suit and brown wingtips, holding a leather portfolio under his left arm and a small bouquet of grocery store carnations in his right hand. The carnations were red. They had been wrapped in cellophane and tied with a thin silver ribbon. He had taken his trouble seriously enough to remove the price sticker. "Helena," he repeated, and the polished click of his wingtips finished its journey across the linoleum and stopped 6 feet from her. "It has been a long time." She did not invite him further in. She did not invite him to sit. She did not take the carnations. She let the kettle's slow tick fill the room while she looked at him. 26 years had thinned his sandy hair and stooped his shoulders and pulled his mouth thin. But the watery pale blue eyes were the same eyes that had watched her sign the registry at her father's funeral in 1998 without offering her so much as a glass of water. He smoothed his navy tie with 2 fingers, index and middle, and gave her the small, careful smile he had given the registry book. "I came to pay my respects." He smoothed his navy tie with 2 fingers. "And to talk about the property. My mother was buried 4 weeks ago, Roman. Where were the respects then?" Roman did not blink. He smoothed his tie again. "Helena, I was in Pittsburgh. The funeral notice. There was a delay. You know how the family has been." "I know how you have been." She did not raise her voice. She kept her hands at her sides. Out past the kitchen window, the wind dragged itself through the milkweed, and the small, dry rattle came again, and Helena thought of her mother's 3-line note folded in the pocket of her cardigan, and she did not let her eyes flick toward the pierogi press on the maple work table. "I'd like to come in." Roman shifted the leather portfolio under his arm. "Sit down. I drove 3 hours." "Then sit down in the parlor, not the kitchen." He took the parlor. She left the carnations on the kitchen counter without finding a vase. She did not put the kettle back on. She joined him in the parlor and took the green Naugahyde chair her father had not sat in since 1998, and she pulled the lever forward so that she sat upright with her feet on the floor like a person who intended to leave. Roman set the leather portfolio across his knees. He did not look at the newspaper on the arm of her chair. He smoothed his tie with 2 fingers a third time. "Helena," he said, "let me be honest with you. I came because your mother and my father, they had an arrangement about the West Hazelton property, about the 17 acres, and I want to make sure you know what that arrangement was before any decisions get made about the estate." She let his words settle between the cold tick of the kettle and the dry scrape of his portfolio clasp. West Hazelton property had never appeared in any Christmas letter, any kitchen account book, or any warning from her mother. She had known only there was a pierogi press with a crooked handle. She kept her face still. "Go on." Roman opened the portfolio. He produced a single sheet of paper, photocopied, the edges slightly furred from being shown too often. He held it out to her. She did not take it. He set it on the arm of her chair instead, on top of the folded standard speaker. "This," he tapped the photocopy once with a clean fingernail, "is a release, signed by your mother in October of 1983. It releases the subsurface mineral rights on the West Hazelton parcel back to the Trzaska family. My wife's grandfather purchased the surface in 1981. The mineral rights were held in trust by your mother. In 1983, your mother signed them back. The trust was dissolved. The Trzaska heirs have held the full bundle since." Helena did not look at the photocopy. She looked at Roman's tie. He smoothed it again with 2 fingers. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. "Because Patriot Anthracite Holdings wants to lease the seam. Because they are willing to pay $215,000 in signing fees, with royalties beyond. Because my wife's family is the registered owner of the rights, and because there has been, Helena, there has been a small administrative confusion at the courthouse. Your mother's name is still on a 1981 instrument, a 1981 deed of retention. We need that 1981 instrument acknowledged as superseded by the 1983 release. We need a signature from your mother's heir. From you." Helena pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. "My mother died 4 weeks ago, Roman. I have not yet opened her safe deposit box. I have not yet sat down with her lawyer. I have not yet read her will. And you have driven 3 hours from Pittsburgh to ask me to sign a paper acknowledging a release I have never heard of, dated 1983, when I was 6 years old. It is a formality. Nothing is a formality, Roman. Not in a Slovak family." He smoothed his tie. "Helena, be reasonable. There is no need for this to become adversarial. The funeral was hard. The estate is emotional. But the seam is real. The lease is real. The Trzaska family has held the rights for 43 years. We are simply asking for the courthouse paperwork to reflect what has been true since I was a child." "Then leave the photocopy with me," she told him, "and leave my mother's house. I will speak to her lawyer this week." He did not stand up. He smoothed his tie a 5th time. He said, "Helena, let me be honest with you. There is a window on this. Patriot wants the lease signed by the 15th of December. After the 15th, the offer drops by $90,000. I do not control that. I am simply passing it along. As family." The kettle ticked once more on the cold burner. Helena rose from the recliner. She walked to the front door. She opened it. The November wind came in, carrying the cold smell of the slag heap and the dry rattle of the milkweed pods. Go home, Roman. Go home to Pittsburgh. I will speak to you after the 15th. He stood. He smoothed his tie. He picked up his portfolio. He left the photocopy on the arm of her chair. At the threshold he turned and said, with the small, careful smile he had given the registry book, "I am sorry for your loss, Helena. Truly." Then he was gone, and the polished click of the wingtips moved back down the porch boards and across the gravel to a black Mercedes she had not noticed parked at the curb. She closed the door. She locked it. She stood with her back to it and pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat and breathed once, slowly, the way her mother had taught her to breathe when a thing had to be done that she did not yet know how to do. Then she walked back to the kitchen. The pierogi press sat where her mother had left it. The crooked handle waited, but the kettle had gone cold, and the dusk had begun to come down outside the kitchen window, and Helena understood that she was not going to lift the handle alone. Not yet. She picked up her mother's brown leatherette address book from beside the telephone, the same address book her mother had kept since 1968, and she opened it to the letter H, and she dialed the number listed in her mother's careful hand, under Halloran Gerald Atty. He came in the morning at 10 o'clock in a brown tweed sport jacket worn at the elbows, over an ivory dress shirt and a brown silk knit tie, with wire-rim reading glasses on a black cord at his neck, and a leather briefcase that had been resoled twice. He was 64 years old, broad-shouldered, slightly stooped, with full silver-white hair combed straight back from a high, weather-burned forehead, and he set the briefcase down on the maple work table as though he had set briefcases on that table many times before. "Helena," he said, and his voice was the voice of a man who had read 1,000 wills in 1,000 kitchens. "I am so sorry. I have known your mother since 1973. I would like, if I may, to sit at this table the way I sat with her last August." He did not call her Mrs. Kovalik. He did not call her Ms. Kovalik. He used her first name the way her father's friends had used it. She poured coffee from the percolator she had set up at 6. He took it black with 1 spoon of sugar. He did not touch the coffee until he had taken the wire-rimmed glasses from his neck, polished them with a folded white handkerchief from his inside pocket, and set them carefully on the maple board face up. He did this the way another man might cross himself before a meal. Then he drank. "I owe you an explanation." He set his coffee down beside the face-up glasses. "About the cousin." Helena pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. "I would prefer the explanation," she answered, "before the explanation of what is in the pierogi press." Mr. Halloran's silver-white eyebrows lifted, just slightly, and he did not pretend to have misheard. He set the cup down. He cleaned the wire-rimmed glasses again, more slowly this time, and he set them down again face up. "Your mother told me about the press in August." He touched the folded handkerchief beside his glasses. "She did not show it to me. She said, and I want to give you her words as nearly as I can. She said, 'Gerald, if Roman comes before you do not let him touch the table. The handle is what matters. The handle is for Helenka.' I asked her what was under the handle. She would not tell me. She said that was for you to find." Helena did not look at the press. She looked at Mr. Halloran's hands. They were broad, weathered, the knuckles thick with old labor. "And the cousin. Roman is the son of your mother's older brother, Andrei. Andrei passed in 2014. Roman married a Trezaska woman in 1996. The Trzaskas being the family that bought the surface of the 17 acres west of Hazleton from your mother in 1981. Roman has, for the past 4 years, been representing the Trzaska interests in connection with a proposed mineral lease by Patriot Anthracite Holdings. The lease, if executed, would reopen extraction on the east vein under those 17 acres. The Trzaskas would receive the surface easement fees. The mineral rights holder would receive the lease signing fees and the per-ton royalty. She waited. He cleaned the wire-rimmed glasses a third time. He did not put them on. The Trzaskas do not hold the mineral rights, Helena. Your mother did. Your mother does. The 1981 instrument retained the subsurface rights in her name when she sold the surface. She never released them. Whatever Roman showed you yesterday is not a document I have ever seen on file at the Luzerne County Courthouse, and I have looked. I looked in October. I looked again last week. The 1981 retention is the only instrument of record. Your mother was the sole holder of the east vein under those 17 acres. Helena set her coffee down. The kitchen window had gone gold with mid-morning light, and a small shaft of it crossed the maple work table and lit the corner of the Pierogi press. Then what is the photocopy he gave me? I would like to see the photocopy. She brought it from the parlor. She laid it on the table between them. Mr. Halloran put the wire-rimmed glasses on. He read it twice. He turned it over. He read the back. He took the glasses off. He cleaned them with the folded handkerchief. He set them down face up. Helena, he said, I am 64 years old, and I have been practicing law in Luzerne County since 1986. I have seen forgeries, and I have seen real instruments. The signature on this photocopy is not your mother's signature. The notary seal is not from a notary who was commissioned in October of 1983. The instrument number references a book that was not opened until 1987. This is a poor forgery, Helena, a confident poor forgery. The kind made by a man who has been told by his wife's family for 40 years that something belongs to them, and who has decided to make a piece of paper say so. Helena did not move. She pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. Why now? She asked. Because your mother died. Because as long as Anna was alive, the question of the 1981 retention could be addressed by Anna. Because Roman believes, and I am sorry to say this aloud, Roman believes you do not know the property exists. I did not. I know. Mr. Halloran drank his coffee. He set the cup beside his face-up glasses and said, If you have followed Helena this far, subscribe now. What waits under Anna's handle is the part she guarded for you. The shaft of mid-morning light moved a quarter-inch across the maple. Somewhere outside, a coal truck shifted into a lower gear and ground up the rise toward the slag heap. Helena listened to it for the length of a breath. Then she steadied her cup with both hands. Gerald, how much did you know? Before yesterday. He set the cup down. He cleaned the wire-rimmed glasses one more time. I knew there was a retention. I did not know where she had hidden the original. She told me only that she had hidden it, and that she had hidden it somewhere your father would have approved of. She did not tell me what your father would have approved of. I did not ask. There are things a country lawyer does not ask a Slovak widow in her own kitchen. I would have liked to know in October. I am glad to know it now. I am sorry I did not know it earlier. She was not afraid of you, Gerald. I know she was not. She was afraid for me. There is a difference. Helena nodded once. Will you stay while I lift the handle? I will. And whatever is under it, will you tell me, before we leave this kitchen, what it means? He cleaned the wire-rimmed glasses one last time. He set them down face up. He did not put them on. He looked at her with the deep-set blue eyes that had read 1,000 wills in 1,000 kitchens. And he said quietly, "Helena, if you have come this far, 6 hours from Bethlehem, a cousin on your porch, a note from your mother in your cardigan pocket, then you have already begun. What waits under Anna's handle is the part she guarded for you." Helena did not smile, but the corner of her mouth softened by a fraction. She had not expected the ally figure to be a man who, having read 1,000 wills, still spoke to the listening dead the way he spoke to the living. She set her coffee down. She stood up. She walked to the pierogi press. She placed her left hand on the work table, flat, the way her mother had placed her left hand, to steady the board when she was rolling dough. And with her right hand, slowly, she lifted the crooked maple handle. She lifted it a 1/4 inch, and the iron pin moved with it, dry and silent in its 40-year-old socket. She lifted it a 1/2 inch. The handle tilted forward. She lifted it a full inch, and the cracked hinge at the base of the handle came free of the press frame altogether, and the handle came up in her hand, and underneath it, where the iron pin had passed through the hollow channel of the handle for 41 years, a small folded thickness of paper showed, yellow, dry, folded into thirds, the way a deed is folded, the way a man who has worked in the recording office his whole life folds a deed, with the writing inward and the watermark outward. Helena did not breathe. Mr. Halloran did not breathe. Outside the window, the November wind dragged itself through the milkweed, and the small, dry rattle came once, twice, 3 times. Helena set the handle down on the maple board, face up, the iron pin pointing toward the kitchen window. She took the folded paper out of the hollow channel of the handle with 2 fingers, the way her mother had taught her to take a host, from the pyx at home communion when her father was dying, with the thumb and the index finger and a stillness in the wrist. She set the folded paper on the maple board beside the handle. She did not yet unfold it. Gerald, he put on the wire-rimmed glasses. He nodded. "Open it." She unfolded the first crease, then the second. The paper opened into a single sheet, 8.5 inches by 14, the cream yellow of a 45-year-old document, the watermark, the Pennsylvania state seal in a wreath of laurel, visible through the page when she tilted it toward the light. The heading was set in heavy serif type, the kind a printer in Hazleton would have set in 1981 by hand on a linotype machine. Deed of Retention of Subsurface Mineral Rights. Below the heading, in the careful blue ink hand of a recording clerk who had been 93 years old in 2014 when he died. The particulars that on the 14th day of September in the year 1981, Anna Marie Kovalik, of number 14 Back Street, Eckley, Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, did sell to one Edmund Stanislaw Trzaska the surface estate of a parcel of land lying in Hazel Township, comprising 17 4/10 acres more or less, bounded on the north by Black Creek Road, on the east by the slag boundary of the former West Hazleton, number 3 Colliery, on the south by the parcel of Vincent Bregar, and on the west by the right-of-way of the Lehigh Valley Railroad, and that the said Anna Marie Kovalik did expressly retain for herself and her heirs, and her assigns in perpetuity, the entirety of the subsurface estate, including, but not limited to, all anthracite, all bituminous, all coal of every grade, all clay and shale, and all extraction and access rights pertaining thereto. The deed was signed at the bottom by Anna Marie Kovalik in her schoolhouse hand. It was witnessed by 2 persons. Helena read the names and did not know one of them and did know the other. The first witness was Stanislaus Bednar. Stanislaus Bednar was Roman's grandfather. He had died in 1989. The second witness was Father Bartholomew Lisicki. Father Bartholomew Lisicki had been the pastor of St. Michael the Archangel in Eckley from 1968 until 1992, when he had retired, and his nephew Tobias had taken the parish. Helena pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. Tobias would have been 28 in 1981. He would have been newly ordained. He would have been a curate to his uncle. He would, Mr. Halloran said, and Stanislaus Bednar was your great-uncle, Andre's father, Roman's grandfather, the brother of your maternal grandmother. Yes, and Stanislaus Bednar witnessed your mother's retention of the mineral rights in 1981. He did. Mr. Halloran took off the wire-rimmed glasses. He cleaned them with the folded white handkerchief. He set them down face up on the maple board beside the open deed. Helena, he set one broad palm beside the open deed. Do you understand what you are holding? She did. She did not say so. She let him say it. You are holding the original recorded retention of the subsurface mineral rights to 17 4/10 acres of anthracite-bearing land in Hazel Township, Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. Your mother was the sole owner of that estate. Upon her passing, the estate vests, under intestacy, or under any will she may have left, in her direct heirs. You are her only child. The estate vests in you. There is no 1983 release. There is no Trezaska claim. There is only this. And whatever signing fee Patriot Anthracite Holdings is currently offering, $215,000, was that Roman's figure, that fee, and the per-ton royalty beyond it belongs to you. She did not sit down. She did not feel the kitchen. She heard the small, dry rattle of the milkweed through the closed window, and she heard the weight of her mother's coat at the door, and she heard, for the first time in 11 years, the press of her father's hand on the small of her back, the way it had pressed when she had stood at his mother's grave in 1987. She did not feel triumph. She pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. Mama, she murmured to the kitchen, you knew. You knew for 44 years. She knew, Mr. Halloran answered, and she told no one. She told Father Bartholomew in 1981. She told my father, your father, at some point. She told no one else, not Andre, not Stanislaus's wife, not the parish, not the standard speaker. She knew that if she spoke of the retention, the Trezaska family would press the question. She decided, at the kitchen table at which we are now sitting, that she would hold the rights in silence and let the seam stay quiet beneath the 17 acres until she was certain it was time to speak. And when was that to be? I do not know. I think she had begun to suspect, in August, that Roman had been told by the Trezaska side that the seam would be opened whether the paperwork was clean or not. I think she had begun to suspect that her death would be the moment they moved. I think, and I am only guessing here, Helena, I am only a country lawyer guessing at the heart of a woman I loved. I think she pinned the deed under her crooked handle in 1985 because she trusted nothing in this house more than the handle her husband had bent for her with his own hands at the colliery forge. Helena did not cry. She did not bend. She pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat, and she looked at the deed, and she looked at the press, and she looked at the maple board, and she said very quietly, then she did not pin it there because the press was the best place. She pinned it there because the press was the safest place in the world. She did, because nobody would ever think to look in a kitchen tool. An immigrant woman had not let her husband take out of the house in 1985. Nobody. Helena set the deed down on the maple board. She folded the handle back into the cracked hinge. She did not yet replace the iron pin. She left the deed open beside the press. "Gerald, what do we do now?" "Mister." Halloran put the wire rim glasses on. He stood up. He drank the last of his coffee. He set the cup down on the maple board beside the deed and the open press and the polished handle. "Now," he said, "we go to the courthouse in Wilkes Barre. Today. Before Roman remembers that there is a county recorder's office in Wilkes Barre and that the 1981 instrument is on the third floor in Book 68, page 217, and that any half-decent attorney can pull it for $13. And then we go to St. Michael's, because Father Tobias is going to remember what his uncle witnessed in 1981, Helena, and what your mother told him in confession in 1983. They drove to Wilkes Barre in Mr. Halloran's 20-year-old maroon Buick station wagon, the deed in a manila folder on the seat between them, the open press still on the maple work table in the kitchen behind them, because Helena had not yet decided whether she would let it be moved. The November light over Luzerne County was the color of skim milk. The maples along the highway had thrown their leaves a week earlier, and the bare branches looked like the bones of a woman's hand in an X-ray her mother had once shown her, the year her mother had broken her wrist closing a coal bin door. The Buick's heater pushed warm air against Helena's knees. She did not speak for the first 15 minutes of the drive. Then she said, "Gerald, if we file today, if we record an affidavit today, Roman will know by tomorrow. He will, and Patriot Anthracite Holdings will know by Monday. They will. What can they do?" Mr. Halloran did not answer at once. He drove with both hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel, the way men of his generation drove. He passed a coal truck. He waited until the truck was behind them. He cleaned the wire rim glasses with the folded handkerchief one-handed, the steering wheel under his left knee for the length of the cleaning, and put them back on. They can do 4 things. They can withdraw the lease offer. They can negotiate directly with you. They can file a quiet title action arguing that the 1983 release, the forged release, is the operative instrument. Or they can settle for a one-time payment to make you go away. The first 3 are slow. The 4th is fast. The 4th is what I would do if I were them. They will offer you $80,000 by Tuesday. What do you advise? I advise that we make the offer expensive for them to make. We file the affidavit at the recorder's office in Wilkes Barre today. We file a notice of probate at the orphans' court tomorrow. We file an injunction against any lease activity by Patriot Anthracite on Wednesday. By Friday, Roman is sitting across from his Trzaska in-laws, explaining why the $80,000 settlement he was going to offer you has just become a court-supervised valuation of the East Vein at fair market over a 60-year lease horizon. The East Vein, Helena, is, at current anthracite prices and current extraction technology, worth somewhere between $2 and $3 million to your estate over that horizon. Not $215,000, $2.5 million, give or take. Helena did not breathe for the length of 3 telephone poles. Then she repeated the number against the cold glass. $2.5 million. Give or take, I have been a lawyer in Luzerne County for 40 years, Helena. I know what an East Vein lease is worth. I knew when your mother sat across from me in August. Anna did not know the figure. I did not tell her. I think she would not have wanted to know. She would have wanted to know that the 17 acres were hers, and that no Trzaska boy was going to drill her brother's grave in West Hazelton. Helena pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. "Gerald, There is a cemetery on the parcel. There is, the eastern 2 acres. St. Michael's bought them from the colliery company in 1947, and the colliery sold the surrounding 15 to your grandfather in 1949. Your grandfather sold them to your mother in 1958. Your mother sold the surface to Trezaska in 1981, retained the seam, and kept the cemetery acres in the parish's name. Your father's grave is on those 2 acres. Your mother's grave is on those 2 acres. My wife is on those 2 acres. The seam runs straight beneath the cemetery, Helena. Patriot's lease would undermine it. Within 15 years of opening the east vein, the headstones would be settling. Within 30, the trees would be gone. She knew. She knew. The Buick crested the rise above the river, and the city of Wilkes-Barre came up out of the November Valley gray as a heron in a marsh. The Susquehanna ran flat and dark under the bridge. Helena watched the water move beneath the railing, and she thought of her mother at the maple work table in Eckley in the spring of 1985, with the crooked handle in her hand and the iron pin from the colliery forge and the cream-yellow deed folded into thirds and a 6-year-old daughter playing in the parlor with a Singer cabinet for a dollhouse, and she understood, for the first time in 40 years, what kind of woman her mother had been. The recorder's office at the Luzerne County Courthouse was on the 3rd floor in a long room with a marble counter worn glass smooth by 98 years of elbows. The clerk on duty was a woman of about 60 in a maroon cardigan and a tortoiseshell beret, and she greeted Mr. Halloran by his first name and asked after his back. Mr. Halloran rubbed the small of his back and called it the same as it had been since 1991, bearable in the morning and not bearable in the afternoon. He set the deed on the marble counter. He set the affidavit he had drafted on the Buick's hood in the parking lot, in his clear blue ink hand, on the marble counter beside the deed. He set $13 on the marble counter beside the affidavit. The clerk read the deed. She read the affidavit. She looked up at Helena. "Anna's girl." "Yes. I am sorry for your loss, honey. Your mother gave me a jar of plum butter last August. She gave plum butter to everyone she trusted. Then I am honored." The clerk recorded the affidavit. She stamped it. She stamped a copy. She stamped a second copy. She handed Helena the second copy. Book 194, page 817. The original retention is in Book 68, page 217. Recorded September 14th, 1981. Your mother was the recorded holder. She had been since I was a junior clerk. Anyone who told you otherwise has been lying to you. She did not say it loudly. She did not say it gently. She said it the way a woman of 60 in a marble-countered courthouse says a true thing when she has waited 44 years to say it. Helena thanked her. They walked out of the courthouse into the November light. They did not speak in the parking lot. They got into the Buick. Mr. Halloran did not start the engine at once. He cleaned the wire rim glasses with the folded handkerchief. He set them down on the dashboard face up. "Helena, there is one more place we need to go before we drive back to Eckley. St. Michael's. St. Michael's." The drive back across the river took 13 minutes. The Buick climbed the rise out of Wilkes-Barre and turned north on Route 940, and then east on the old Hazleton Road, and the slag heap of West Hazleton No. 3 came up on the left, dark and bare against the sky, the chain link around the shaft head bent inward by 40 years of weather, and Helena did not look at it. Mr. Halloran did not look at it either. They drove past it. They turned into the lane that led into Eckley Patch. They passed number 22, number 18, number 16. They stopped at number 14. The pickle green clapboard sat the way it had sat for 41 years. The lane was empty. Roman's black Mercedes was not in the lane. Mr. Halloran did not get out. I will meet you at St. Michael's at 3. Father Tobias will be in the rectory until Vespers. I want you to go alone, Helena. I want him to tell you what your mother told his uncle without me in the room. He will tell you more honestly that way. Helena pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. All right. And Helena, take the deed with you. Take the original. Take both copies of the affidavit. Do not leave them in the kitchen. Not today. Not with that press still on the work table and the handle still loose. She nodded. She got out of the Buick. She walked up the porch boards and into her mother's kitchen, and she put the deed and the affidavits into the inside pocket of her charcoal wool coat against her heart, where her mother's 3-line note still rested. She replaced the iron pin in the handle of the pierogi press. She did not lift the handle again. She did not need to. At 3 o'clock, she walked down the lane in the November wind to St. Michael the Archangel. The church sat at the end of Back Street, where the patch ran out into the dirt road that led to the slag pile, a brick chapel built by Slovak miners in 1892 with a single squat bell tower and a small graveyard along the east side, and the rectory was a clapboard house attached to the church by a covered walk, painted the same pickle green as number 14. Father Tobias Lisicki opened the rectory door before she had knocked. He was a slight, slender man of 71, in a long black cassock buttoned to the throat, with a stiff white Roman collar and short white hair combed neatly back, and pale blue eyes that were kind without being soft. He wore on his right ring finger a small, worn gold wedding band that he had not removed since his wife had died in 1979, 3 years before he had taken orders. He raised the right hand and touched the wedding band before he spoke. Helena, Anna's girl, come in. She came in. He led her down the cold rectory hallway to the small parlor at the back, where his uncle had received parishioners for 30 years and where he had received them for the 33 since. The room smelled of beeswax and old incense and the cedar of the bookcases. He sat her in the green chair by the gas fire. He sat in the chair opposite. He touched the wedding band on his right ring finger. Your mother, he said, I knew since I was a curate to my uncle. I baptized you in 1976. I confessed her. I should not say confessed, but I will say it because we are family. I heard her at the rail every Saturday from 1981 until the August before her last August. She was a woman who did not waste words on God. She did not waste them on me either. I have known 3 things about Anna for 44 years that I have told no one. I am going to tell you 2 of them. The third is hers. Helena pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. Tell me. Father Tobias did not lean forward. He sat upright in the green chair, with his hands folded over the wedding band on his right ring finger, and began. The first thing, in September of 1981, my uncle was called to the kitchen of number 14 Back Street. Your mother had asked him to witness a deed. Stanislaus Bednar was already there. Anna told my uncle that she would sell the surface of the 17 acres west of Hazelton to Edmund Trzaska because she needed the money to pay your father's debt to the company store after the strike of 1980. She told my uncle that she would retain the subsurface because she did not trust the Trzaska family with the seam. She told my uncle that she would not tell your father about the retention. She said, and these are my uncle's words to me in 1992, when he gave me the parish. She said, "Tibor, if I tell Stefan about the coal under the surface, Stefan will work it. Stefan will work it until he dies, and the company will work him until he dies. And the seam will be gone before Helenka is grown. The coal must stay where it is until I am the one who decides it does not. That is the first thing." Helena did not move. The fire ticked once in the grate. Father Tobias touched the wedding band again. "The second thing. In October of 1983, a man named Stanislaus Bednar came to your mother's kitchen with a paper. He asked her to sign it. He told her that his son Andrei had run up a debt in Pittsburgh that the Trzaska family had agreed to pay, and that in exchange Anna would release the subsurface to the Trzaskas. He told her the paper was a release. He told her she needed to sign it before the end of the month. She did not sign it, Helena. She refused. She sent him away. He came back the next day. He came back with a notary and a witness. She refused. He came back a third day. He came back without a notary. He came back angry. She refused. On the fourth day, Stanislaus Bednar did not come. On the fifth day, a paper was filed in Pittsburgh, in a county 100 miles from Luzerne, a paper that purported to be your mother's signature releasing the rights. She came to my uncle the following Saturday at the confessional rail. She said, "Tibor, Stanislaus has forged my name. What do I do?" My uncle told her, and I was 28 years old, and I was standing in the sacristy, and I heard him say it through the open door. My uncle told her, "Anna, you do nothing. You keep the original deed. You keep it where no Bednar will ever find it. You wait. The forgery is in Pittsburgh. The real deed is in Wilkes-Barre. The day comes when the question is asked. The answer will be in the place you have kept it. Until that day, you say nothing. You do nothing, and you let them believe what they wish to believe." Anna said, "For how long?" My uncle said, "For as long as it takes, Anna. Coal does not move. Neither must you." Anna did not move, Helena. For 44 years, she did not move. Father Tobias touched the worn gold wedding band on his right ring finger. "That is the second thing." Helena did not cry. She pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. "And the third thing." Father Tobias did not look away. "The third thing is hers, Helena. She told it to me at the rail in October of last year. I will say only this. She knew in October that her time was short. She knew that Roman would move at her death. She told me where the deed was. She did not tell me what was written on the back of it. She told me only that you would find it, and that what was on the back was for you alone." Helena drew the deed from the inside pocket of her charcoal wool coat. She unfolded it on her knee. She had not, until that moment, looked at the back. She turned it over. On the back, in her mother's careful schoolhouse hand, in pencil, faded by 41 years, were 3 lines. "Helenka, the acres are yours. Open the seam if you want. Sell the seam if you want. But if you sell, sell to the parish first, for $1, for the cemetery to keep its trees." "Mama." Helena read the 3 lines twice. She read them a third time. She folded the deed. She pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. She did not speak for the length of a small log settling in the grate. Father Tobias did not speak. He touched the wedding band. "Father Tobias, the parish cemetery is on the 17 acres. It is on the eastern edge, 2 acres of it. Yes. Did my mother know that the east vein runs under the cemetery? She did. And she meant the sale of the seam to the parish for $1 to prevent the cemetery from being undermined by Patriot Anthracite holdings. She did. Then she did not pin the deed under the handle to make me rich, father. No, Helena. She did not pin it there to make you rich. She pinned it there to make sure that when the question came, the answer would be yours to give. And she trusted you to give it the way she would have given it. To the trees over your father's grave. To the trees over my uncle's grave. To the trees over hers. Helena did not cry, but the corner of her mouth moved by a fraction, and her hands shook for the length of a single breath before she steadied them on her knees. Father Tobias, will you come to the kitchen with me tonight? When Roman comes back, I will come. And will you stand in the parlor while I tell him no? I will stand in the parlor. She rose. He rose. He touched the wedding band on his right ring finger one last time. Anna's girl. Anna was the strongest woman I ever heard at the confessional rail. You are her daughter. The seam will be safe in your hand. She walked back to number 14 in the November wind. The dead milkweed pods made their small dry rattle along the side garden. The pickle green clapboard came up out of the dusk, and in the lane, parked at the curb, was a red Ford Escape with a Bethlehem dealer sticker on the back window. Her daughter Kat was sitting on the porch boards in a forest green canvas barn coat and a cream cable knit sweater and dark indigo jeans and brown leather Chelsea boots, 24 years old, ash brown hair in a low ponytail, refolding a single sheet of paper over and over in her lap. She looked up. Her hazel eyes were red. Mom, I drove up. I read the obituary again last night. I needed to come. Helena sat down on the porch boards beside her daughter. She did not put her arm around her. She did not need to. She let the November wind drag itself through the milkweed pods for the length of 3 rattles, and then she touched the porch board between them. Katya, there is something I need to show you, and something I need to tell you, and then we are going to wait for a cousin you have never met, and we are going to tell him no. Kat refolded the sheet of paper in her lap a second time. She did not refold it a third time. She let it sit. All right, Mom. Do you remember Babka's Pierogi press? The one with the crooked handle, the one Dado dropped. That one. Yes. Come inside. I want to show you what was under the handle. Kat followed her mother into number 14. The Pierogi press sat where they had left it. The iron pin was back in the crooked handle. The deed and the affidavits were in the inside pocket of Helena's coat. The kettle was on the stove, cold. Helena set the deed open on the maple work table in front of her daughter. She did not speak. She let her daughter read it. Kat read the front. Kat read the back. Kat sat down at the maple work table and pressed both hands flat against the wood and did not speak for the length of one slow breath. Then she pressed both hands flatter against the maple. Mom, the trees. Yes, she bought us the trees. She did. She bought us the trees with a press handle. She did. Kat tucked her ash-brown ponytail back over her shoulder with her ring finger. She did not cry. She nodded. She tucked her ponytail back once more. Tell me what to do when he gets here. At 7 o'clock, the polished click of 2 leather wingtips came up the porch boards, and the front door opened without knocking, and Roman Bednar walked into the kitchen in a charcoal pinstripe suit, with a fresh white pocket square folded into 3 points, and a leather portfolio under his left arm, and behind him came a second man in a navy overcoat and a gray Homburg hat, who introduced himself as Mr. Vance Carlson of Patriot Anthracite Holdings. Helena did not stand up from the kitchen table. Kat did not stand. Father Tobias stood in the parlor doorway in his black cassock, with his hands folded over the worn gold wedding band on his right ring finger. Mr. Halloran stood at the back door in his brown tweed sport jacket, with the wire-rim glasses on a black cord at his neck. The Pierogi press sat in the center of the maple work table. The crooked handle lay lifted beside the loosened iron pin. Roman smoothed his navy necktie with 2 fingers, index and middle, and gave Helena the small, careful smile he had given the registry book in 1998. "Helena, I came as soon as I heard you were back." "You came," she answered, "because you were told I went to Wilkes-Barre this morning." Roman did not blink. He smoothed his tie again. "Helena, let me be honest with you. There has been a recording at the courthouse this afternoon. An affidavit. I do not know who advised you." Mr. Halloran did not move from the back door. He cleaned the wire-rim glasses with the folded white handkerchief. He put them on. He said nothing. "But the recording is precipitous. The 1983 release is the operative instrument. Mr. Carlson is here because Patriot is prepared to offer a settlement. $80,000. Today. Cash equivalents. In exchange for a quitclaim of any subsurface interest you may believe. Roman." Helena stood. She walked to the maple work table. She lifted the crooked handle of the Pierogi press. She removed the iron pin. She set the pin down on the maple. She did not lift the handle out of the cracked hinge. She did not need to. She drew the deed from the inside pocket of her charcoal wool coat. She unfolded it on the work table beside the press. She turned it so the heading faced Roman. "Deed of Retention of Subsurface Mineral Rights. Recorded Book 68, page 217, September 14th, 1981. Witnessed by Stanislaus Bednar. Witnessed by Father Bartholomew Lisicki. Signed by Anna Marie Kovalik in her schoolhouse hand." Roman looked at the deed. His right hand rose halfway toward the navy tie, stopped short of smoothing it, and dropped to his side. Mr. Carlson in the navy overcoat took a step backward. Roman looked up at Helena. The watery, pale blue eyes were the same eyes that had watched her sign the registry in 1998. "Helena, let me be honest with you. This is the original." Helena laid 2 fingers beside the seal. "Recorded by Anna Kovalik in 1981. Held by Anna Kovalik until January. Held by me since January. Affidavitted in Wilkes-Barre at 11:15 this morning. Witnessed by your grandfather Stanislaus Roman. Witnessed by Father Bartholomew, whose nephew is in my parlor. The 1983 release you showed me yesterday was filed in Allegheny County by a man who knew that nobody in Allegheny County would ever look in Book 68, page 217, in Wilkes-Barre. Your grandfather forged my mother's signature, Roman. He forged it in October of 1983, 2 months before he had the stroke. You have been carrying his forgery in your portfolio for 4 years. The Trzaska family has been carrying it for 43. Roman did not smooth his tie. He did not speak. His mouth moved once, a small, dry sound, like the milkweed pods, and then it stopped. Mr. Carlson of Patriot Anthracite Holdings cleared his throat. "Ma'am, if what you are saying—" Helena turned to him. She pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. "Mr. Carlson, the mineral rights to the East Vein under the 17 4/10 acres in Hazel Township belong to me. I will not be selling them to Patriot Anthracite Holdings. I will be selling them for $1 to the parish of St. Michael the Archangel in Eckley for the purpose of preserving the cemetery on the eastern 2 acres, where my grandparents and my father and my mother are buried, and where the trees over their graves are not going to be undermined by your East Vein extraction. The sale will be recorded tomorrow. The parish will hold the rights in perpetuity. There will be no lease. There will be no extraction. The seam will stay where it is, Mr. Carlson, the way my mother left it." Mr. Carlson did not speak. He looked at Roman. Roman did not look at him. Roman looked at the deed. Roman looked at the pierogi press. Roman looked at the iron pin on the maple work table. He smoothed his tie with 2 fingers, once, slowly. Helena, let me be honest with you. I did not know about. You knew, Roman. She did not raise her voice. You knew the release was your grandfather's signature. You knew it the day your father told you, in 2014, on his deathbed. You have known for 11 years. Go home. Go back to Pittsburgh. Tell your wife's family that the seam is closed. Tell them that the trees are staying. Tell them that the answer was in a kitchen tool. An immigrant woman did not let her husband take out of this house in 1985. Tell them you came for it, and you found a daughter at the table, and the daughter said no. Roman did not smooth his tie. He looked at her for the length of a single breath. Then he picked up his leather portfolio. He turned. He walked out of the kitchen. The polished click of his wingtips moved across the linoleum and down the porch boards and across the gravel to the black Mercedes. Mr. Carlson, of Patriot Anthracite Holdings, nodded once at Helena, and once at Father Tobias, and once at Mr. Halloran, and he followed Roman out without saying another word. The front door closed behind them. The November wind dragged itself through the milkweed pods along the side garden, and the pods made their small dry rattle, and Kat refolded the sheet of paper in her lap twice, and then sat very still. Helena pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. Father Tobias touched the worn gold wedding band on his right ring finger. Mr. Halloran cleaned the wire-rimmed glasses with the folded white handkerchief and set them down face up on the maple work table beside the open deed. Nobody spoke for the length of a kettle's slow cool. In the morning, Helena walked with Kat down Back Street to St. Michael's. The November sun had come up over the slag heap and laid a thin amber light across the pickle green clapboards of the patch, and the air smelled of frost and coal dust, and the small dry rattle of milkweed pods. Father Tobias was in the rectory parlor. Mr. Halloran was already there. The deed was on the small mahogany table by the gas fire. The quitclaim was beside it, drawn up in Mr. Halloran's clear blue ink hand on the Buick's hood at 6 o'clock that morning. Helena signed the quitclaim. She signed it with the fountain pen her mother had given her when she had graduated from Bethlehem Catholic in 1995. A small black Esterbrook her mother had bought in 1962 for $2.15 at the Hazleton 5 and Dime. The pen had not been used in 11 years. The ink was still good. Helena signed her name across the line in her mother's careful schoolhouse hand, because it was the hand her mother had taught her. Mr. Halloran witnessed. Father Tobias accepted, on behalf of the parish, the sale of the subsurface mineral rights of 17 4/10 acres of anthracite-bearing land in Hazel Township, Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, for $1 United States dollar. Helena gave him the dollar. He folded it carefully and put it into the small wooden box on the mantel where the parish kept the coins from the Christmas Eve collection. He touched the worn gold wedding band on his right ring finger. Anna, the seam is closed. The trees will stay. We will plant a sycamore by Stefan in the spring. We will plant a maple by your mother. I will say the requiem on the Saturday after Easter, Helena. Will you come? I will come. Will you bring Katya? I will bring Katya. Father Tobias rose. He embraced her briefly, one hand on her shoulder and one thumb resting against the wedding band on his right ring finger, and spoke very quietly into her hair. Anna was the strongest woman I have ever known. You are her daughter. Go in peace. She left the rectory. Kat walked beside her on the gravel walk through the small graveyard, and they stopped at the row where her mother's plot sat freshly turned beside her father's older stone. The mound was still bare. The marker would come in the spring. Helena did not kneel. She pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. She said, in the voice her mother had used for evening prayer at the maple work table, the small Slovak phrase her mother had said at the rail every Saturday of her life. Kde sú pierogi, tam je pravda, mama. Where the pierogi are, there is the truth. The wind moved through the small graveyard. The dead milkweed at the cemetery fence made its small, dry rattle. Helena did not cry. Kat did. She walked back to number 14 with her daughter in the November sun. They walked along Back Street the way Helena had walked it as a girl, past the 8 pickle green and fern green and sage green and mint green clapboards of the patch, past the closed-up door of Mrs. Vargova's house, past the empty lot where Mr. Pavlik's house had burned in 1989, past the chicken coop the Smitkas still kept behind number 18. The wind dragged itself through the milkweed pods along the side gardens of the row houses, and the pods made their small, dry rattle, the way the pods had rattled in her childhood. At number 14, they stopped on the porch. Kat tucked her ponytail back over her shoulder. "Mom, what are you going to do with the press?" Helena did not answer at once. She looked at the door of her mother's kitchen. She pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. Then she answered, "I am going to put the handle back, the way Dad pinned it in 1985. I am going to leave it on the maple work table. I am going to keep the house. We will come up for Easter. We will come up for All Souls. We will come up for the Requiem in April. Your father will come too, when he can. We will keep the house pickle green. We will keep the table where it is. We will not move the press." Kat nodded. She refolded the sheet of paper she was still carrying in her hand, the Standard Speaker obituary her mother had folded for her. And she did not refold it a second time. She let it sit. They went inside. Helena hung her charcoal wool coat on the peg by the back door. She put the kettle on the stove. The pierogi press sat in the middle of the maple work table, where her mother had left it. The crooked handle sat where her father had pinned it in 1985. The iron pin was back in the hollow channel of the handle. The cracked hinge still showed its old split, exactly as her mother had left it. The cedar smell came up out of the linoleum the way it always came up in the kitchen as the morning warmed. Helena did not move the press. She did not move the pipe in the chipped blue saucer beside it. She set the kettle on the burner. She turned it on. She turned to her daughter, who was standing by the sink in the forest green canvas barn coat and the cream cable knit sweater, 24 years old, hazel eyes still red but quiet now. Kat pressed her hand flat against the maple work table. "Mom, before you make the tea, to anybody who has listened this far, subscribe, then go through the kitchen. The next story may be in your grandmother's breadboard, spice tin, wedding Bible, or under one crooked handle." Kat did not smile. She tucked her ash-brown ponytail back over her shoulder with her ring finger, the way she did when she was nervous, and she pressed her hand flat against the maple work table, and she nodded once at her mother. Helena pressed her thumb against the gold cross at her throat. She poured the tea. They sat at the maple work table in the pickle green kitchen of number 14 Back Street, Eckley, Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, with the pierogi press between them, and the small dry rattle of the milkweed in the side garden, and the cedar smell that had been her mother's coat for 41 winters, and the brass key on the corner of the board, and the clay pipe in the chipped blue saucer, half full of half-burned shag, and the November sun coming through the east window with its thin amber light. Helena set her cup down and reached across the maple board and touched the crooked handle of the Pierogi press, the way her mother had touched it every afternoon of her life. The handle still sat crooked where Stefan had pinned it. The iron pin was tight. The cracked hinge held. The deed was gone, recorded in Book 194, page 817, sold for $1 to the parish. But the press was the same press her mother had received as a wedding gift in 1958. The handle was the same handle her father had bent on the colliery forge in 1985. The maple board was the same board her grandmother had brought from Lavocha in 1922. Helena did not move the press. She did not lift the handle. She let it sit. She let it sit the way her mother had let it sit. She heard her mother's voice at the rail at St. Michael's, the careful Slovak, the way her mother had said it every Saturday of her life. Gdzie są pierogi, tam je prawda, Helenka. Where the pierogi are, there is the truth. She heard it the way she had not heard it in 11 years. She heard it the way she would hear it for the rest of her life. Outside the kitchen window, the November wind dragged itself through the dead milkweed pods, along the side garden, and the pods made the small dry rattle that Helena Kovalik had not heard in 11 years, and would hear now every November of her remaining years in the kitchen of number 14 Back Street, on the maple work table in front of the Pierogi press, with the crooked handle pinned by her father in 1985 and left crooked by a daughter who knew why it had to stay that way. The truth had finally come home.